Does that help? Okay, so I'm going to attempt to move forward without sharing slides for just a few minutes. I see that y'all are saying you can't hear me, but I'm hoping that's changed now with the lag. Okay, perfect. All right, so one of the myths that we have when it comes to data is it's the student's fault that they aren't prepared. Deficit mindedness can be detected in comments that we make about the perceived shortcomings of our students, such as having poorly resourced schools, growing up in low income communities, being raised by single parent households, coming from families that don't value education and things like this. So these shortcomings are a natural outcome of the students' backgrounds, and addressing attendant inequities requires programs that fix students, is what we like to say. So there's a lot of code words that we use for deficit mindedness, and these are our weaknesses, not our students' weaknesses. Some of these code words that we tend to use: students are underprepared, their culture does not value education, their parents expect them to work, they don't know how to be students, they don't know how to study for a test, they read the book but they don't understand it, they lack self-regulation skills. So in terms of this, as I look for my page numbers, they got by in high school, didn't realize college is different. As equity-minded practitioners, we need to shift away from using these words, away from the student focus, and start to look at our practices and see where our practices are weak. Just the simplest framing of questions can encourage solutions that aim to fix minoritized students. I'm going to attempt to share again. I know a lot of y'all are saying that if you refresh your browser, that helps and allows you to join back in the session again. Okay, so once again, we are going to send you the video links later on. We created these videos based on equity-minded exercises in Dr. Tia McNair, Dr. Bensimon's Equity Talk to Equity Walk. I'm going to attempt the video one more time, and this is the second video, and if it doesn't work, then we're just going to move forward with the presentation itself. Welcome, Dr. Holland.
Hey. All right.
So we are about to start video number 2. We've had some issues with sound and some issues with quite a bit of things, actually.
Okay.
But everybody's been very patient and very excited about the information. I also told them that we would forward them the information when we finished. So we are about to attempt the video for multivariate.
Okay. Am I supposed to be able to hear the video?
Yeah, so that's what we ran into before. All right, so given the experience that we had previously, we're going to move forward. All right, so some discussion. We're going to skip through discussion questions and we'll go to our Mythbusters. So we're on Mythbuster number 2. And Mythbuster number 2, equity requires lowering your standards. So equity does not mean lowering your standards. To achieve equity in your classroom, you don't have to do more. You just have to change your focus. So when one child is sick, do you give that child more attention? When one child is a rule follower and the other one's a free spirit, do you parent them the same? For most of us, giving our kids what they need when they need it means that we don't always treat them the same. That should be true in schools also. Anyone who works in public schools knows that students arrive with different needs. Some have experienced trauma, others are learning English for the first time, and others may be reading below grade level. It follows that our students will need different things in order to thrive and meet their full potential. Addressing the needs of all students isn't easy, but it's the goal of equity in education, to treat our students the way we would want our own children to be treated. This is the true meaning of equity, acknowledging students' differences and giving them what they need to be successful. It also means staying focused on outcomes, both academic and developmental. We'll know we're doing more equity work right when kids' backgrounds no longer predict their outcomes. A commitment to equity should not result in lowering standards or choosing to serve one group of students over another, affluent or underprivileged. To do so only prevents kids from being able to achieve excellence. When schools and systems are focused on equity and opportunities and excellence and results for all students can benefit. I am going to attempt the third video, which is actually my favorite anyway.
I do have the book here if you want to summarize the skit.
Oh, awesome. Yes. Go for it.
Are you going to play it first to see if it plays?
Yeah, let me try changing the setting real quick.
Okay.
Look, I'm all for reviewing data in our meetings, but it needs to be accurate. I've been here for 20 years, and I've never seen success rates this low for my physical potions course. I don't understand what changed last year. These data have to be wrong. They can't possibly be correct.
Dr. Talk data to me from the Institutional Research Office generated this for me, so I am fairly certain it is right.
Well, I don't believe it. These differences in group outcomes are not even statistically significant. I'm not going to change anything in my class based on incorrect data from a single semester.
Okay, for this short vignette, how would you respond to the professor? We call this guy the data skeptic. So he's doubting the validity of the data, and he's wondering if it's not statistically significant, the differences between the groups, then why should it matter? Jeremy says every student matters, and that's absolutely right. Every student does matter. Anytime a student comes into our class, I hope that the majority of us have the anticipation and the expectation that that student will succeed. Any other comments that you might say to this professor? See. Okay, he has been teaching too long and is unwilling to change. Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, that's a tough one. And my response to people who they're kind of in their rut and they don't want to change is to try to create a culture where that person will be the odd person out. In other words, ideally, you know, people want to fit in with their division, they want to fit in with their discipline and with their school. And if you can create that culture of inquiry, then eventually that person is going to find themselves kind of the oddball out. And so that person may then become more open to at least paying attention to what their colleagues are doing. And in terms of what I might say to this professor, regarding statistical significance, I bet I have, there's some statisticians in the audience, if not some social behavioral scientists. You know, the 0.05 statistical significance level, that is by convention. It doesn't mean anything outside of the publication realm. And so we have to put meaning on that. And that's all about what this exercise is doing, is making sense out of what the data are saying, making sense out of the patterns of data that we're seeing. So if somebody's going to argue, well, those differences aren't statistically significant, so what? There's still a difference there. And if they are systematic differences, if one particular group is regularly performing below the other groups, then that group deserves some support, some scaffolding to help them, give them what they need to succeed. Yeah, and some of you guys are also reporting here, statistically significant implies a large sample. Yes, thank you. Which means you're making students that struggle the outliers. Yes, and then you could also ask him, what kinds of things do you suggest for reaching those students who are not being reached? Absolutely. Again, asking questions, getting people to think why and how and what might we do to improve people's achievement. Absolutely. Angie, I can't hear you. No, I can't hear you. Do it again.
Okay, how about now? Yay, awesome. Okay, so dare we go back to the second video, or do we want to continue moving forward?
Hey.
Want to continue moving forward?
I think maybe continue moving forward.
Okay. All right. So now we're to Mythbuster number 3. The data is either incorrect or attempts to tell the whole story. So the data is just a starting point for looking into our own practices. Rather than being told where equity gaps exist and which student groups experience them, we need to look to uncover the gaps for ourselves. And this is what we encourage you to do with your classes. So we need to critically reflect on our own practices and analyze our own courses. Equity-minded sense-making is the process of critical reflections, contextualization, and meaning making. It goes beyond examining data and noticing equity gaps and outcomes. It involves interpreting equity gaps as a signal that practices are not working as intended, and asking equity-minded questions about how and why current practices are failing to serve students experiencing inequities. We want you to create a culture of inquiry, pose questions, dig deeper, and take action. So equity-minded sense-making aims to foster a culture of inquiry so that institutional and faculty action is guided by evidence and directed at those practices that contribute to or exacerbate inequalities. So we want you to feel empowered to examine your own practices and your own data and discover for yourself where equity gaps exist. And then it's up to us to devise plans to address those gaps.
Okay, there are plenty of tools in our toolbox. And at this point, we finished showing the videos, and now we're going to talk about some strategies to employ to address some of these equity opportunities. So if you want to go ahead and put the first strategy up, Angie. Yeah, so there are many tools in our toolbox that we can use to begin addressing opportunities for promoting equity. And I bet if I surveyed everyone, all of you are going to be familiar with at least one of these strategies, if not all of them already. For starters, TBR has graciously hosted a variety of different workshops on many of these strategies already. So the kind of the theme that runs through this last part here is that we want to encourage people to start thinking intentionally about these tools and strategies, being transparent about why we're using them. So having said that, the first strategy is the TILT paradigm. TILT is based off the work of Marianne Wilkemus, and it stands for Transparency in Learning and Teaching. There's some great websites which are included in a handout that we're going to give you that direct you to TILT. And these are, using TILT is a very small adjustments that you can make to your assignments, your student assessments, that really get at helping the students understand why, what they're supposed to be learning. So skills and knowledge that they're supposed to be learning, why it's important for them to learn this material, the steps to take in order to reach success, instead of just saying, write a research paper. It's kind of guiding them through the smaller steps involved in writing that research paper, and providing evidence for what's expected in order for them to earn the grade that they want. In other words, providing students with the criteria that they're going to be assessed on. So in essence, they can self-assess and see how they're doing all along the way. So kind of cutting to the chase, it's providing them with the rubric ahead of time so that they know what they need to do in order to to earn a good score. But the whole idea here is to be transparent. And there's some really cool exercises that Dr. Wilkemus has walked people through when I've been in parts of her workshops. And it's really fun because you get to connect with people from outside your discipline to see if your assessment is easy for another person who is quite educated but not in your discipline, if it's easy for them to follow along. And if it is, then you've achieved transparency in learning and teaching. Okay, so that's the first strategy, and Angie's going to do the next one.
All right, so our second strategy is the concept of backward design. So a lot of times we as teachers focus on more on teaching rather than learning. So by utilizing backward design, this is a great way to address equity-mindedness. So backward design usually has 3 different stages, and it's essentially coming out with the end goal in mind and developing your teaching approaches based on that end goal. So the first stage would be identify the results that you want. What do you want your students to get out of what you're teaching them? And I know over the last 7 months, a lot of us have really changed our perspective on what really we want our students to learn, because we're having to make the best of a situation in terms of going virtual or going online. And so I know me personally, it's completely changed my approach to how I want students to learn. So by using backwards design, you first come up with your big ideas or your skills that you want your students to learn. Then you come up with evidence. How are the students going to show that they've learned that? And then you come up with learning experiences that you might do, things like lecturing or flipped classrooms or discussions. So backwards design is beneficial to us as teachers because it encourages intentionality while we're designing our classes. It encourages us to establish the purpose of doing something before implementing it into the classroom or into the curriculum. And it's a way of providing guidance for instruction and designing lessons. So it takes all of the students into consideration and the results that you want there to be, instead of just, oh, hey, I think I'm going to lecture today, or, oh, hey, I want this video to be shown, and that's how I'm going to get this point across. So you really get down to what you want to accomplish, and build the course backwards from there. The teaching isn't just about engaging students in content. It's about ensuring that they have the necessary resources to understand the content. And it can be engaged more accurately if you use backward design, because it leverages what students need to know, and then you understand the design process in order to see if they've actually accomplished that learning. So that's our second one. Leads us to number 3.
Okay, and the third one is high impact practices, and TBR's done a wonderful job over the past few years about getting workshops together and getting information out and helping our schools code for high impact practices. And so I'm not going to go over each individual one of them. TBR again has a great has some wonderful information on their website. In addition, any work by George Koo or Ken O'Donnell can also help you and guide you in creating high impact practices. But again, the guideline here is being intentional about implementing them. And at least at our school now, we are trying to systematically implement high impact practices across all general education classes. And that's no small task. So, but anyway, high impact practices, I know you guys are familiar with those. Undergraduate research, writing intensive, service learning, all of those good things, internships, those are high impact practices.
Then our fourth strategy for equity-minded sense making is the equity-minded syllabus. This is kind of a syllabus shift, and I know that we all have required components of our syllabus that we're required to have in the ones that we submit to our students, but we also need to look at the wording in our syllabi and make sure that we're actually understood when the students are reading these. So we need to make sure that students see themselves reflected in our syllabi, in our assignments, in our instructional materials. In addition to, let's see, some examples of what I found that you might find in the syllabus that you might need to shift. We use are for Thursdays. That's not language that is just naturally understood. So you might need to address that in your syllabus instead of assuming that students understand this. So the content and tone of a syllabus can affirm racially minoritized students that they belong in higher education. It can confirm their instructors' beliefs that they're expected to succeed and validate their pursuit of a college degree. So other things that you need to look for when you're looking in your syllabus is to make sure other terminology, things like office hours, are understood. I have had students in my college success class, when we addressed office hours, they thought that was the time to stay away because I was going to be doing office work, rather than that was when I needed to open my door for them to come and talk with me about concerns or issues that they might have. Other terms that might be reflected in the syllabus that might not be equity minded would be things like weighted grades, learning objectives, things that are listed in the syllabus without an explanation. So by giving students access to the language of our institution, we're improving their chances of success. So when you're looking at your syllabus, maybe have two. Have the one that has the required language of the institution, and then have one that elaborates on the information in there so that your students feel included, so that they feel like they belong. Expand the section under your syllabus that provides the students with the basic information. So instead of just listing your office hours and contact information, give them different details that are more friendly. Demystifies the relevance of the information that's in there. Write using language that's clear and plain, and try to avoid academic jargon. Think about arranging your syllabus so that it's important information in the beginning and that it's highlighted to bring it to the student's attention. Convey this on the syllabus and then also reiterate in the classroom. Don't just read the syllabus to the students, but talk through the syllabus with the students so that they understand what's expected and what you're talking about. Don't say something like students who are struggling should seek help. Go a step further. Talk about resources that one approach that we've taken recently is these are the resources that you've already paid for as part of your tuition. Please go take advantage of these rather than wasting that money that you've paid. And then we talk about tutoring opportunities that they've already paid for, or the Tiger cupboard that they already have access to, or the librarians that are an essential resource. So just look at the language that you use, like Dr. Holland talked about, provide resources for support while destigmatizing seeking help. Exactly. Just look at what you've already used and take it a step further and make it more inviting, more understandable, and make it to where students feel like they belong and that your syllabus reflects that you expect them to succeed because they have that ability. Leads us to...
Yeah, so our last strategy that we have listed for our presentation, I'm sure there are other ones, but these are the ones that we identified, is access to open educational resources, which stands for, or which OER stands for, and TBR has also been part of the Digital Engagement Initiative over the past year or so. And so textbook costs continue to be a barrier for many students, and you know, in our ability to be able to provide students from day one what they need to succeed, a textbook is one of those things. So providing or using open educational resources can reduce material costs for students. They make materials available on the first day of class, so no one's getting behind. They can immediately start their work. And this all works to maximize, providing an electronic resource maximizes student learning, because students always have this available to them from day one. If they do have an electronic device, they can access their materials. And so this is the last strategy that we've identified with our presentation. And I think we're right on time here, Angie. And if you want to close out, that'd be great.
Sure. Okay, so I did want to put up, we have, should this cooperate, a PDF that we would like to share with everybody, and we will be glad to send it out to you. It takes all of the information that we've talked about today and puts it just in one user resource. It has links to all the different strategies that we've talked about for equity-minded sense making, and it gives you some links to other information and then information to reach out to us should you need any help with anything. I do thank y'all for your patience in all of our sound issues and video playing issues. We'll also be glad to share those videos with you so that you can see a little more about the three possible pushbacks that exist because of data disagreement from the book that Lindsay is showing to you today. So we will get the list of everybody that's here, and we'll be sure to send out those resources to you. If anybody has any questions, we'd be glad to address those.
Thank you, Julius. We
not, we appreciate
you. All right.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you all so much for attending.